Okay, guys, welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. I am Charlie McGrath, your host, and I want to thank Eric Lovely for a great breakdown of the Second Amendment, the constitutionality of it, and the true definition of the Second Amendment, not this garbage we're getting about we can limit our rights because of recent precedent. And for those of you who didn't get to hear that, and I keep forgetting to make this announcement, we are broadcasting as much as possible, which is just about every program. We are rebroadcasting them on YouTube directly after the program. So if you miss part of the program, you don't have to wait till the archive's posted on Wide Awake News tomorrow. If you, excuse me, if you rather listen to the full 2 hours on the Rinse archive, be my guest. That will still be posted up tomorrow, but what we're trying to do is post them on YouTube, broken down into the segments. The first segment with Eric Lovely, then take out the commercial break, the second segment with Eric Lovely, and so forth and so on. So we're trying to do 4 posts a night that have the day's radio program on them, and I am amazed and astounded at some of the view numbers we get on these. A lot of people were asking, why did we take down Justin TV? And it's not that we don't want to broadcast on Justin TV, but I had to make a choice between, do I want to record on one computer the program live so I can post it immediately, or do I want to have a webcam tied up to it so I could broadcast on Justin TV? Eventually, I will get the right kind of equipment that allows me to split this signal from Skype, and I can do all 3 at once. But as of right now, we seem to be getting more traffic running it on YouTube, and after all, that is the whole idea, is to get as many people immersed in this information as possible. So 500 to 600 to a couple thousand views, or I guess we call it listens, when it's just the radio broadcast, is certainly a good number compared to what we were having on Justin TV, even though we'd have, some nights around 100 people watching on JTV. It stays out there longer. The information is out there longer. So that is the reasoning by it. Also, I want to take the time to thank our monitors, because I haven't done that for a while. And for those of you who are new to the chat room and are wondering what the monitor situation is, right now we have Cookie, Hunt, Radio, Womp, as well as WFW and Fries with that. These are our room monitors, and they follow some very common sense, basic guidelines. I'm not going to go over them right now, but if you want to read them, they're posted right below the chat room. So if you're in the chat and you're wondering why somebody gets booted or somebody's talking about it, these guys are here to keep it clean and keep the conversation rolling and keep out the trolls and basically the garbage that gets dumped into some of these chat rooms. And I will announce that Animo, who I'm saying his name wrong, but that's what I've always called him, he will be joining the list of monitors late this week, early next week. So we have a new member of the monitor staff. Okay, I am going to kick it off with Micheal Snyder. Micheal Snyder, the Economic Collapse blog, as well as the Indian American Dream, regular, at least monthly visitor to the program. Always a great interview. But his latest piece, and I will probably spend most of the hour covering this. The title of it is Just Open Your Eyes and Look. 65, good grief, Michael. 65 signs that the economic collapse is already happening. But before you comment on that, I found something very that was very near and dear to me in the first couple paragraphs. You say in here, you talk about people wondering when the collapse is going to happen, 2008, things are getting better, that kind of thing. But you often get comments to your site that go something like this. I'm going to try to read it without butchering. Michael, I just don't know what you're talking about. Where I live, everything is just fine. The malls are packed, the restaurants are full, and everybody I know is going on vacation this summer. Personally, I'm doing great. I just bought a 60-inch television and a new boat. Every year, all the doom and gloom types, such as yourself, proclaim that an economic collapse is right around the corner, but it never happens. And you know what? It's not going to happen. Those in charge, tell me this isn't a real comment. Those in charge know what they are doing, and America has the greatest economy on earth. We have overcome challenges before, and we will be able to handle whatever comes this time. Your lack of faith in America and the American people astounds me. Everything is going to be just fine. So why don't you just blah, and then it ends. It was probably expletives, I'm assuming, at that point. Is this a real comment? I mean, I've received this comment in forms, but never this just, sheeple-esque. Have I received this diatribe of, I mean, who writes this? This has to come right out of the press room of the White House.
Well, no, it's not a real comment, but in the article that I just wrote, I explained that I get lots of comments that are like this.
Right.
So I kind of pieced it together from different comments and different things that people have been telling me recently, or that people have been leaving comments to the articles. So I kind of pieced it together into kind of one generic comment, which kind of encapsulates a lot of the things I'm hearing recently. And just the ignorance and just the arrogance of a lot of people out there, and people just don't understand. And maybe things are going great where they live. Maybe they live in a New York City or Washington, D.C. or Silicon Valley or one of these little enclaves around the country where things are still going well. Things are still doing good. People are prospering. And in certain corners of the country, it may look like things are doing better than ever. But that's not the reality for most Americans out there. And in this article, I really wanted to hammer home the point that the economic collapse has been happening, that it's happening right now, and that it's going to get even worse. So I wanted to show, with dozens of statistics, how we're not doing as well as how we used to be doing, and how things are continually getting worse. So,
yeah. Well, and let me just comment on the comments, because before I asked you that, I didn't realize that you pieced that together, but I certainly can relate, because from the website, the YouTube channel, I've received these similar, paste them together, and this is what the message is, which begs the question: well, why the hell are you reading this, first of all, or why are you watching the video? First of all, if you think everything is just fine, I mean, obviously, this ended up in front of you for one reason or another. Maybe it was a concerned family member, but these kind of comments really cut, because it shows you, and we're going to get into the signs, and like I said, it'll probably burn up the rest of the program, but it really shows you how completely and utterly oblivious people not only are, but in a lot of cases want to be. Because anybody could say to me that things are going great because people are in the mall or in the restaurants, or people are getting on airplanes and flying around the country. And, I suppose this is a valid argument, but if you ask them how is this occurring? How is the economy still, certainly isn't soaring, but how is it still trickling along? How is this made possible? Do you ever look at sites like the nationaldebtclock.org or any other alternative media site that points out the real cost of people being in those malls, the people that are buying boats, the people who think everything's just fine because they see economic activity in the area? It isn't real, first of all. It isn't organic. It isn't natural. It isn't a sustainable model. We are doing this on the back of putting the nation further and further into debt. And the number one argument that I like to give is, look, pretend all you want that this economy's turned around. Pretend all you want. At the end of the day, if we take 2007 as a starting point, 2007, 2008, and look at 2012, your debt load has doubled nearly. This debt that the country is carrying has went from around $9 trillion to about to bump up against the debt ceiling of $16 trillion. This is how you still see people in the malls. This is how you still see credit being issued on credit cards. This is why you still get offers. It isn't because it's real and this money's out there. It's because we borrowed our way into oblivion. And the only thing that we've done by fooling ourselves over the last several years is make the pain exponentially worse, because we've exported this failure around the world. We've let legislation be written and in place that is going to that has transferred the landmine of sovereign debt onto the back of the people. And when this all decides to cut loose, by design, in my opinion, everybody's going to realize how really destitute we are as far as our economy goes, and how destitute and how a change in lifestyle is going to be really just a tsunami onto most people. Go ahead.
Oh, absolutely. And it's just not government debt. You go back about 40 years ago, and if you added up all the debt in the United States, government debt, state debt, local government debt, business debt, corporate debt, individual debt, all forms of debt, 40 years ago, it was about $2 trillion. And today it is getting ready to cross the $55 trillion mark. So in the past 40 years, the amount of total debt in this country has gotten 27 times larger. So all this prosperity that we have been enjoying is illusory. It's a dream. It's fantasy. It's not real, as you said. But people don't understand that because they've got this normalcy bias in this country where people have seen, well, things have always gotten better. Yeah, we've had recessions, but we've always recovered, and things have always seemingly gotten better than ever. So people kind of assume that, well, things have always been good all my life. Why shouldn't they continue to be good for, moving forward? So people look at where we've been, but they don't look at where we're headed, where all the numbers say that this country is rapidly heading.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And it's this fantasy that people are, this normalcy bias that people tend to have makes, in what we've went through, even in just the last several years, is going to make it that, like I said, exponentially worse. Because it's going to be a sledgehammer of reality that is going to, I think, blow a lot of people away, Michael.
Oh, absolutely. And you would have hoped that 2008 would have been a huge wake-up call for people because that was very painful. But, it's kind of fading into memory now, and the federal government came in and borrowed unprecedented amounts of money with the stimulus programs and started printing trillion-dollar deficits, and the Federal Reserve started printing money like crazy with quantitative easing and everything else, and they tried to just paper over that crisis and get us back to where we were. Now, we've not recovered since then, but, things at least calmed down, and people started to forget 2008. But if you look, if you just look at the numbers for the past few years, things are not getting better in this country. For example, when Barack Obama entered the White House, there were 2.7 million long-term unemployed Americans in this country. Now there are 5.4 million. It's doubled since he's been in the White House. Or if you look at the average duration of unemployment in the United States, it's about 3 times as long as it was back in the year 2000. So what we've got in the United States today, we're kind of going through a slow motion train wreck. A lot of people talk about the economic collapse as if it's, some big hyped event, which is going to be, happen one time and that's going to be it. But rather, it's more like a slow motion train wreck that just plays out, over a long period of time. And today people are so used to the internet and, the news cycle being 24 or 48 hours or even less than that. And people are always saying, okay, what's new? But this is something that is a long-term trend. It's playing out over time. Yes, there's going to be moments of great crisis, but we're in the midst of a decline that is taking time to play out. And people need to be willing to look at a broader view of things.
Absolutely. And that's just it. You compartmentalize into these little windows of time, and we're going to go into this election cycle talking, at least on the red team, trying to hang all this around Obama, which certainly he's the only. If he's guilty of anything, it's just the continuation of the status quo, which is exactly, in my opinion, what Mitt Romney's going to do. But it's amazing that we can compartmentalize into these 2-year. 2-year between congressional elections, 4-year between presidential elections, and completely shift the topics and completely shift the momentum from being, what really brought us here to, well, we need, we're talking about Romney getting in there. Just, we got to get rid of these regulations. We got to get rid of Dodd-Frank. We got to get, talking about the nothing fixes that didn't fix anything in the first place, and we're going to get rid of them, and the only thing that's going to happen is it's going to continue to just get far worse, even though the fixes that were brought to us didn't fix anything. So, I mean, it's a dog chasing his own tail, and at the end of the day, the only thing that occurs is we go further into debt. The companies that brought us here are continue to reap massive profit on the backs of the people of the world, and that one day, when the piper is paid, it's going to be horrendous. But go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to reinforce your point about the red team and the blue team, because I get this on my site all the time, constantly, every single article. The Republican readers come on and they blame the Democrats. Then the Democrats come on and they blame the Republicans. But both of them are to blame. Neither political party has been doing a good job. Both of them have been responsible for shipping our jobs overseas, running up our debt, and doing all these things which have created the problems in the first place. So, hopefully we can start getting people to understand that neither political party is going to fix anything. They're both part of the problem, and both of them, both Obama and Romney, want to take us down the exact same road into oblivion, and hopefully we can get people to understand that.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Let's get into this article a little, because I've really taken us off topic here. 65 signs. Let's say I'm a newly awakened individual and I want to go to a website that helps me understand where we really are. I'm going to go to Michael Snyder's The Economic Collapse or theamericandream.com because of the way you write. It's great, and you receive a lot of traction. And over the last couple of years you've been coming on here, I know that your work is spread far and wide. I see it absolutely everywhere now. And it's because you break it down in such a way that is understandable. So what are the 65? Let's start. With about 3 minutes left before we go to break. Let's start with how can I show somebody that we're in it, man? This isn't a game. This isn't things are going to be okay in the next election. We're going to see an increase in economic activity. Forget about all that. Here's the real deal.
Well, I came across 3 numbers today about small businesses that really surprised me, because small businesses that's what America is supposed to be about, being entrepreneurs, starting up small businesses, creating jobs. Well, during the last recession, U.S. economy lost more than 220,000 small businesses, and there were about 3 million workers that worked for those small businesses. And then if you look at the percentage of Americans that are self-employed, that has fallen by more than 20% between 1991 and 2010. And then overall, the number of new entrepreneurs and business owners fell by 53% between 1977 and 2010. So whether you want to look over just the past couple of years during the recession or over the broader time frame of several decades, all the way going back to 1977, the number of small businesses is in decline. Our economy is killing small businesses, killing entrepreneurs, and that's a very, very disturbing long-term trend. And where all rewards going is going to the big corporations.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's the point I wanted to make. I mean, you talk about the destruction of small business. You're talking about the destruction of the middle class. You're talking about the entrepreneurial spirit. When you have this legal-based capitalist system, it's not a dig on capitalism, it's a dig on the legal-based capitalist system, where the institutions that have amassed all this wealth, namely the financial institutions that fund a lot of the corporate special interests, when they've amassed all this wealth, they write the laws that govern the country. And when they write the laws that govern the country, well, who's going to get weeded out? It's going to be small business. It's going to be competition. So you write legislation that benefits the too bigs and absolutely hampers and hinders anybody that's wanting to get involved in this economy in a real way that maybe produces something in this country, a real way that hires people in this country. For too long, I've sat back and seen in the industry that I've been in for the last 2 decades, I'm watching the exportation of jobs and the importation of material from the Pacific Rim to where the point that we sit now, where I can get you a board instead of 400 miles away where Michael Snyder is in maybe North Idaho or Washington, I can get it cheaper by shipping it 15,000 miles from China. It makes absolutely zero sense. And the end result is what Michael just pointed out, a decimation of the economic engine that built this country. We're going to be back with Michael Snyder and more Wide Awake News Radio in 5.5 minutes. Hang tight. Collapse blog, and I say this all the time, the economic collapse blog and the Indian American dream, and he's on quite often, right? We hear him on here quite a bit, and I keep forgetting it's probably been a year, Michael, since I've given your credentials out. You know, why should we trust Michael Snyder? What is your history? I mean, what have you done that gives you insight in not only how the legal system works, but how the economy and how commerce works?
Well, those are very good questions. I just think of myself as just another average person who, is just trying to do his best to get the message out. But in terms of my background, I have an undergraduate degree in commerce from the University of Virginia, and their undergraduate business school, the McIntire School of Commerce, is considered to be one of the best undergraduate business schools in the nation. So I graduated from there as an undergraduate. And then later on, I went to law school at the University of Florida, and I have a law degree from there. I also have an LLM in taxation, believe it or not, from there. So, I kind of have the undergraduate degree in commerce and business, and then I've got the law degree, which helps me understand the legal ramifications in the legal world of this. And then after law school, I worked in Washington, D.C. I worked for a few different law firms up there, actually. Very low on the totem pole, but I was there in some of those big shiny buildings, working for some very prominent law firms, and enjoyed that. But while I was working there, I started becoming very concerned about the direction of this country, and I was listening to alternative radio programs. I was, really starting to research and get involved. I thought, well, what can I do? So I started writing, and at first it was just very, very small blogs, very, very few readers. But over time, it built up, and that's what I would encourage anyone who wants to do a radio program or do street protest or whatever. Just start where you can. And when you start, it's almost certainly going to be very small. But if you stick with it and you do good work and you put your heart into it, eventually it'll grow and you can make a big difference. And I'm evidence of that.
Right, and obviously those are all rhetorical questions that I've asked you because I know your background, but it is important that we talk about that because people need to know that it isn't just people who are maybe good at delivering a message, and this is kind of would be more my background. I've been in business for a long time, but I do have somewhat of an ability to speak, so I get some traction that way. But it isn't just people like that, or it isn't people who are just ticked off because maybe they've lost their home or they know somebody who has or they're directly affected by the economy. We do get people in this genre that are very knowledgeable in the goings on. And these are the people that we truly turn to because they understand it better. When I have somebody like you on with this legal background or another Florida lawyer, Matthew Widener, he's on once in a while. These are people who see what's happening to this country, what's happening to our legal system, our financial system, and typically they do a really great job of delivering truth. This is a labor of love. I know that's the truth for you, Michael, and I'm hoping you're making a living with all your efforts, but I certainly know that you're not doing this in order to feather your nest. And like you said, when you start these things out, be it YouTube, be it a website, whatever the case may be, you always start with one. The first person who subscribes to your channel, the first person who goes to your website. And I'm telling you something, even when you get up into the millions of people who are watching your videos or going to your website, it isn't about money. It never has been, at least for me and I believe for you, nor will it ever be. And if it ever is, I think I'll wash out in about 0.02 because we know that when media, when knowledge, when truth, when information is stained with the corporate model, which is profit above all else, above the truth, that we can't compete. The alternative media cannot compete with that model because guess what? We don't have the funding. We don't have the law on the legal-based capitalist system on our side. In quite to the contrary, everything is geared for us to fail. So when I see somebody successful in this genre, it generally is attached with somebody who's doing it for love of spreading the truth.
And that's one of the reasons why I try so hard to stay independent. You know, I'm not a part of some organization. I don't represent this group or that group or this church or that alternative media, you know, whatever. But I like the fact that I'm truly independent. No one tells me what I can or cannot say. And so I'm so thankful to have that freedom.
Yeah, and usually that's what I found, Michael. And probably, you know, you can speak to this a little bit, and I want to get back to some of the stats that point to this collapse we're in. Maybe switch to Europe a little bit. But typically, what I found, it doesn't matter what you are. It doesn't matter if you're a Catholic or you're born-again Christian or you're Muslim or you're a Jew or whatever the case may be. If you're truly willing to accept the truth, then that doesn't mean, I mean, what it primarily means is you're not going to buy into, I'm a Jew, so I have to be a Democrat, or I'm a born-again Christian, so I have to be a neocon or a Republican. When you truly can open your eyes and realize that, you know, that these are just more pigeonhole tactics, that's when you truly start to set yourself free, at least informationally, you set yourself free to absorb information and decipher what is the truth.
Absolutely, and I think it's imperative in this day and age, you've got to think for yourself, because everyone else is trying to tell you how to think, especially the mainstream media, the political parties, the education system, everything else. But that's why I encourage people, you know, don't let anyone else do your thinking for you. You do your own research, do your own thinking, come to your own conclusions, because I believe that the truth is out there, and if you'll go digging for it and searching for it, that you can find it.
I do believe you're correct. All right, let's get back. We burnt up some time there, but let's, you know, we talked about some of the stats in the United States. You can say all that all day long, Michael, and you will, and I will, and you'll still have the people leaving the comments. Well, maybe that's the case, but I like having corporate-owned strip malls every 5 miles down the interstate, and you know, by the way, they're packed when I go there, and when I go into a chain restaurant, there's people in there trying to get a table, so the economy's still doing just absolutely fine. But if you look at that statement, or if you look at that point of view, tie it to the fact that, okay, fine, your world is perfect. You don't understand, perhaps, that it's perfect because we're going into the hole to the tune of 1.4 trillion plus every single year. We're going into the hole by 1 million homeowners every year. We're going into the hole by tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of small businesses every single year. So what does the end result look like? Well, okay, let's look at some nations who are a little bit further along down this road. And if we look over to Europe, what do we see, Michael?
Well, just today came out that the unemployment in the Eurozone hit another brand new record high. Unemployment in the Eurozone is now sitting at 11.2%. Everyone just kind of went, yawn, another brand new record high. You know, we've seen unemployment in the Eurozone rise for 14 months in a row. Now, of course, when you look at particular countries, you know, where it's essentially depression-like conditions, it's even worse. You look over in Spain, where the unemployment rate is now up to 24.6%. You know, you look over at Greece, where Morgan Stanley is projecting that the unemployment rate in Greece will go above 25% in 2013. You know, those countries are in much worse shape now than they were 12 months ago. And people keep saying, well, when is the collapse in Europe going to happen? Well, the collapse is happening. Look at the unemployment rate exploding. Look at, you know, all these other things. You know, they say Greece is running out of money again. You know, just this past week, you know, a top official from Spain said, oh, guess what? We're going to need a $300 billion bailout probably. You know, so things in Europe have progressively been getting worse. Now, once again, it's a slow motion train wreck. It's not something that happens in a week or 1 month, but it's something that plays out over time. But things are worse than they were last year in Europe, and last year things were worse than the year before. So things are getting much worse, heading toward even worse things. But Europe is a complete and total mess, and that's where we're going, where we see Greece and Spain and some of these other countries right now. We're on the same track. We just haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I'm not confident that it's going to be years before we end up there. In fact, I do believe, this is more the conspiratorial side of me. I do believe that, Micheal, we're going to see this carnage, economic carnage in Europe unfold. Now, we might have had a few days of optimism over the ECB coming out saying they're going to do whatever they want. But even today, it's coming out that they, once again, after 19 summits, after 19 promises, after countless EU officials coming out saying they got this tiger by the tail and they're going to tame it, well, we find out that nothing could be further from the truth, and it's going to continue down a path that is not only not sustainable, that is going to be devastating for the continent. But we're so tied at the hip with this region, we have to understand and have to take an interest in everything that happens there, because credit freeze is no longer just going to happen in the United States or Canada or Mexico or in this hemisphere. It's going to happen globally because all these banks are tied at the hip. But again, back to the conspiratorial side of things, it's easy for me to see an agenda here. Jean-Claude Trichet, I've said on the program many times, he's announced for years that global financial governance is the only answer, and they can't get it. It's like everything we talk about. They can't get the next war started. They can't get the next piece of freedom-stealing legislation passed without the crisis, governed by crisis model. And so I do believe in the not-too-distant future, and, let's talk about this a little bit. Do you see in the not-too-distant future, I know that you and I have maybe not seen 100% eye-to-eye on time frames here, but, we could certainly see within the next year a massive meltdown of the economies of Europe, and which will instantaneously, we're not isolated or insulated, instantaneously transfer to our economic condition here. I could almost write the news pieces coming out or the speeches coming out by our so-called leaders, be it Obama or Romney, saying that we were banging along at a 1%, 0.5% GDP growth, and all of a sudden Europe imploded. So now we're falling off the cliff altogether. So the answer is going to be a simple one. We're going to give all of our sovereignty, all of our freedom, all of our liberty to the hands of a global central bank, which, in my opinion, will absolutely not have the best interest of humanity when they establish and take control. So I guess the question in all that is the cliff closer now than several years down the road? Do you see it a major event happening in the next year?
Oh, I do believe that another major wave is coming. Now, it won't be the last wave, but, I do believe 2008 was a wave, and I believe another wave is rapidly approaching. And I've written about how I'm concerned about this fall and moving into the winter. I don't think we're going to see a major crisis in August because most of Europe is on vacation, and although I think things will, continue to go on the path that they are right now. But historically, we've seen just about every major financial crisis happen in the fall. And I think certainly this fall conditions are ripe for, some really bad things not only to happen in Europe, but in the United States as well. So, yeah, I'm very concerned about kind of the September through the U.S. election and into December. And perhaps while we have a few minutes left, we could talk about the election, because I'm very concerned about the U.S. election coming up, not because of who's going to win or lose, because either way we're headed down a very bad path. But what I'm concerned about is that this is going to be, on the one hand, such a bitter, hateful, divisive election, and on the other hand, it's going to be so incredibly close. I'm concerned that if we get to election night and there's not a clear winner, say like Bush-Gore back in 2000, where it goes into the courts or one candidate, the candidates start fighting over the results, that could potentially be a spark that tears this country apart, because I think that conditions are there. I think there's more hate, there is more division in this country than at any time in our lifetimes. I think people are angrier and more frustrated. Every opinion poll, every survey shows that. And I fear what could happen if we don't have a clear winner in November, that just half the country could just go crazy over this whole thing. And the big red flag for me was when I started seeing news stories about how Obama was hiring this unprecedented legion of lawyers, is what is being called, an army of lawyers that he's putting together to fight over these election results and to watch out for his interests. So I'm concerned about that we can not only see a replay of Bush Gore, but that it could kind of just set off some of this simmering tension that we're seeing in this country right now.
I don't agree. I don't disagree with you at all. In fact, you could even go a little bit further and look at some of the the statements of the Homeland Security Secretary Andrew Napolitano. No, not Andrew. Sorry, Andrew, wherever you are out there. Janet Napolitano coming out talking about 30,000 drones in the air potentially by election time. You talk about the Department of Homeland Security recently purchasing all kinds of riot equipment. Why would this be any different? I mean, if we look at the last 3 presidential elections, right? You had Bush Gore, which was, a Travis Schumachery, as some say. It was a complete mess. And then the re-election of Bush has been proven to be potentially fraudulent to the core. Then you have Obama coming in, not such a big fight, but they are setting everything up now in this hard and fast blue and red division. And this is everything, man. This is everything from finance to gun control to gay rights to everything that it can be pulled out of the closet to divide and conquer is being done. So I think we could see exactly what you're talking about, which is a very close election. All kinds of talk of fraud, and you know what? Frankly, it's probably going to be true. But at the end of the day, how much spark does this powder keg need to really blow up into something? I mean, we've been stewing now. This country's been stewing. The nation, the planet's been stewing for a long time. So how much spark would it really take? One more fraudulent election could be very well that spark indeed.
Oh, it's very true. And there's other things that could set it off, whether it's an economic crisis or whatever. But over the past year, we've seen Obama sign all of these kind of strange executive orders, which just give him more and more and more power. And most Americans just kind of assume that the president will never use it unless there's a war or emergency. That these kind of powers will never be used. But today, just about everything's a national emergency. We're kind of in a permanent state of national emergency here in this country. And so essentially, Barack Obama, or if Mitt Romney takes over, either one of them could declare martial law and take control of the entire country with the stroke of a pen pretty much at any time. Yeah,
I do know. I do know, because you're 100% correct. I mean, just thinking back over the last 18 months or so, seeing the legislation that's been put into place. Of course, all guaranteed and promised that we wouldn't use it, but the power is still there. And that goes, that's across the board, from communication to resources to manpower to this build-out, this continuation of the build-out of security state. It's certainly with a stroke of a pen. And the horrifying part is you're going to have a vast swath of people who are going to be all on board saying, please imprison us. Please turn us into this Stasi police state, even more than we are now.
Well, and that once again goes back to them using the crisis as an opportunity to implement what they wanted all along. All of the major changes we've seen over the past decade or so have always come as a result of a response to a crisis. And I believe that they're going to use the same playbook once again, coming up over the next year or so.
I don't disagree with you at all. Micheal Snyder, the Economic Collapse blog, as well as theamericandream.com. Great work. We talked during the break about maybe a potential project you might be working on. I hope that comes to pass. And I'm going to leave a cliffhanger with that. Guys, thank you very much for hanging out tonight. I greatly appreciate the participation in the chat room. Again, thank you very much to the monitors who take time each and every night to make sure the conversation flows and that it is decent inside that chat room. Please enjoy Jeff Rentz because he's coming up next. I will be back tomorrow night, 5 p.m. West, 8 p.m. East. I will have a guest schedule posted tomorrow on tomorrow night's lineup. All right, guys, have a good night. I'm going to hang out in the chat here for a few minutes. If you watch if you join the program late, look for the Krabby Dog Tricks channel on YouTube. I'll have the program posted up there in a couple hours. All right, have a good night, guys. Peace.